Hello, my name is Ryan Moody, and the purpose of this video is to provide you with a high-level introduction to the mobile version of Loft Manager Online and point out a number of different factors that can impact application performance on mobile devices. This video was created on May 2nd, 2019, and as it currently stands, Loft Manager Online is a Flash or Flex-based application, which is more similar to a desktop application due to the entire application, assets, and data being downloaded and executed with an embedded Flash player in your web browser. Very different from the new version, which is a modern-day web-based application built on HTML5, CSS3, PHP, and Bootstrap, which is a responsive framework. So if you're currently using the Flash-based version of Loft Manager Online, or if you've used it in the past, you'll notice a number of differences in terms of performance. The Flash-based version of Loft Manager Online, which I'm going to bring up on the screen now, actually takes a lot longer to load, and that's because it has to download all of your data, assets, and initialize various components upon login. Providing that you don't have an extensive number of birds, the application will actually perform much faster thereafter in comparison to a modern-day web-based application. And that's because it doesn't have to make subsequent requests out to the web server to refetch and process your data. So for example, I'm currently logged into John Boyle's account, and as you can see, he has 4,743 birds, which is down here in the lower left-hand corner. And clicking on any of these band numbers, you can see just how fast the application loads the data. And that's because it doesn't have to talk to the web server. Everything is already loaded in the application. Hence the reason it's more similar to a desktop application than a modern-day web-based application. The disadvantage to this is as you progressively add more and more birds to your database, the application will require more memory, processing power, and resources of your device, and ultimately degrade the performance of the application as your database grows in size. Compared to the new modern-day web-based application, which I have on the screen now, when you log in, you'll notice that the data loads rather quickly, and that's because we don't download all of the data at once. We only download a partition or portion of that data. In the top left-hand corner, it says showing 1 to 100 of 4,682 entries. So if you wanted to view the next 200 records, you'd scroll down to the bottom, click on Next, which brings you to page 2. Scrolling back up to the top, you can now see that it says 101 to 200 of the initial data set. The advantage of this is we can now perform searches against the entire database, and it doesn't require any more memory or processing power on the device. The bulk of those demands are now placed on the web server. The only disadvantage to this is that the majority of the application functions now require a request to the web server to refetch and process the data. So just clicking on a few band numbers and buttons here, you'll notice a spinning progress meter, which briefly appears on the screen. This is an indicator that the application is communicating with the web server to refetch and process the data, which is then returned to the application where any remaining processing is completed. Because the new version of Loft Manager Online is highly dependent on web server communication, and because it's a heavy application compared to most basic websites, there are a number of factors that can impact the performance of the application on mobile devices, which are less powerful than desktop computers and more prone to poor internet connectivity. But before we cover those factors, let's briefly talk about why Loft Manager Online needed to be rebuilt as a modern-day web-based application in the first place. Well, as it turns out, Adobe, the parent company of Flash, has decided to pull the plug on the product as of next year. Flash has been around for a long time, but Flash adoption has declined over the past 10 years due to Flash being difficult to install on mobile devices, and Flash isn't responsive, meaning the interface doesn't adapt to the various screen widths of mobile devices. The new version of Loft Manager Online is responsive. So to demonstrate this, I'll resize my web browser window to show you how the interface dynamically changes in relation to the width of my screen. So as you can see, I currently have the My Birds tab open, and as I progressively reduce the width of my screen, the column data, the far right hand side, will begin to disappear. So what's happening here is because there isn't enough width to render all of the column data, the column data is rendered underneath the record row and made accessible to you via this round blue button on the far left-hand side. And if you click on that button, it will toggle the display of the column data for that particular record row. To the best of my knowledge, there aren't any mobile devices that have a screen width that is wide enough to display all of this table data, so you will more likely see this on almost all mobile devices. Some other important things to point out that you're going to notice on mobile devices is when you go to the pairing tab, I'll just refresh this real quick here to render the horizontal scroller. This horizontal scroller enables you to scroll the pairing tree to the right or left while maintaining the layout, which is important to denote the relationship from one bird to the next. And you also have a horizontal scroller on the pedigree tab. One thing that's worth noting here is that this gridded area is where you'll want to use your finger on your mobile device, because these fields here are what we call gridlocked. You won't be able to use those to scroll left or right, and that's because those fields actually have scrollers in themselves, such as the one that's shown down here at the bottom. This is this scroller here is independent of the horizontal scroller. So to prevent the entire screen from scrolling up and down, which would get very annoying, the actual screen is locked in place so that you can actually just scroll the content that lives inside of each one of these fields, independently of the page or horizontal scroller. So let's go over some factors that can impact application performance. As I previously mentioned, the new version of Loft Manager Online is very dependent on web server communication, because that's where most of the data and processing takes place. However, even if Loft Manager Online was hosted on the most powerful web server in the world, any one of these factors listed on the screen here can significantly impact the performance of the application. And the first one on the list is cell phone carrier coverage. And this is a big one. Your mobile device internet connection speed and bandwidth can vary depending on your cell phone carrier and from where you're trying to use your mobile device. So much so that you might have a very fast internet connection while your neighbor directly across the street, using the same mobile device, same cell phone carrier, and same cell phone carrier internet plan, might experience very slow internet connection speeds. To further illustrate this, I'm going to bring up a RootMetrics coverage map. RootMetrics basically tracks and records cell phone carrier internet connection speeds throughout the United States. And what you're looking at is a map of Orlando, and all of these red dots indicate very slow internet connection speeds. All the dark blue dots indicate very fast internet connection speeds. Bringing up their legend, you can see they count anything above 6 megabits per second as being fast, and anything below 1.5 megabits per second is considered slow. And if we zoom in further, we can see just how close in proximity these very diverse internet connection speeds really are. Clicking on this one here, we've got a 1.3 megabit per second connection, and right next door we've got a 38 megabit per second connection. Clicking on this one here, we've got a 0.4 megabit per second connection. Right next door, we've got a 24 megabit per second connection. So the point is if you're experiencing slow response in the application, do run a speed test, see what kind of download speeds you're getting. More often than not, a poor internet connection is the culprit of the performance problems that you're experiencing. Just looking at this map, as you can see, it's very sporadic but not uncommon. And this, by the way, is a map for the AT&T network. I can click on this drop down and put it on Sprint, or we can look at T-Mobile or Verizon, and they're all very similar. If you want to use this tool or download their app to test the download speeds on your phone, it's rootmetrics.com. Check it out. It's a great tool. You can actually do searches for other cities as well. I just chose Orlando because that's where I'm at. So with that said, let's go ahead and move on to the next factor, which is the cell phone carrier internet plan. So despite whether you have excellent coverage or not, if you're running a 2G or a 3G plan, obviously it's going to be slower than a 4G or 5G. I just noticed I got a typo in here. That should be a 4G. 5G, or also known, or I'm sorry, 4G, also known as LTE, is actually on average 10 times faster than 3G. So there is a cost difference, obviously, with these plans, and you'll want to check with your cell phone carrier to see which plan that you have. Most plans these days are 4G because cell phone carriers want to offer you the best speeds possible. But I have found a number of cell phone carriers out there that still offer 3G. So do take a look at that, because that again will impact performance. If obviously if it's a slower internet connection, it's no different than connecting at one of the connecting at one of the very low end megabit per second connection speeds that I've illustrated with this root metrics map. The next one is going to be cell phone quality. When I talk about cell phone quality, I'm talking about differences in cell phones. Like this phone right here, for example, ZTE Z5 II. You can buy this phone for $19.99. This phone right here has a limited amount of memory and processing power, and when you compare that to an iPhone 8 Plus, for example, which is $700, $699.99, there's a big difference between this phone and that phone. These are very different phones. So when you're using a heavy application on either one of these two different phones, you're going to notice a difference in performance just because the iPhone is a more powerful phone compared to this lower end $20 ZTE Z5. So that is another factor to keep in mind when using a heavy application like Loft Manager Online. The quality of your phone can make a big difference. The next one is age of mobile device. So over time, as you install more apps, you take pictures, you begin to deplete the resources of your mobile device battery life begins to degrade. The overall performance of your mobile device will also degrade as well. Pulling up an article here that I found online, it says why Android phones slow down over time and how to speed them up. They list a number of things here that can impact the performance of your phone over time. Operating system updates, that's a big one. Heavier apps require more resources. Background processes can slow things down. So if you've got apps that are working in the background, such as the Facebook app, for example, they're constantly talking to the server to fetch status updates and things like that. Full storage leaves little room for your OS to run. As I previously mentioned, installing photos and apps and things like that, it does take up valuable resources that your mobile device depends on. And one thing they don't mention here is the basically your battery life begins to degrade over time. I pulled up another article here in regards to Apple phones. They actually admitted to slowing down certain iPhones, and it's all due to the lithium ion batteries in the phone. Basically, as the lithium ion batteries in the phone ages, they can't handle processing demands at the same capacity. So this is another big contributor to a degrade in performance of mobile devices over time. So all these factors can impact mobile device performance. So do keep these on your radar if you're noticing that your phone is running slow and you're not ready for an upgrade yet. Just do a quick Google for how to speed up your phone, and usually you can find a lot of helpful resources such as this that will actually give you detailed instructions on how to make some improvements on the performance of your phone. So jumping back to our list of factors that can impact application performance on mobile devices, the last one that I have listed here is background processes, which I believe we briefly covered already in the previous article, so I'm not going to go into detail on that again. In summary, if you are experiencing slow response on your mobile device or cell phone, please take the due diligence of going through these items here and just ensure that you've got a solid internet connection wherever you're at. There are numerous apps you can download to run a speed test, one of which is provided by RootMetrics. I mentioned that earlier. Make sure you've got a fast internet plan with your current carrier, whether it be a 4G, LTE, or even 5G, which is the latest. Make sure you're using a halfway decent cell phone. Once again, there's a big difference between a $700 phone and a $20 phone. They're going to perform differently. You get what you pay for, right? Age of mobile device. Once again, over time, it's notorious that your cell phone performance is going to degrade. We install more apps, we take more photos, we consume resources, and the battery becomes weaker and weaker over time. So just do a quick Google on that. There's a number of different things you can do to speed up or improve the performance of your device if it's older, if you're not ready for an upgrade yet. And last, once again, background processes. If you've downloaded apps that are running and frequently connecting to the internet to get status updates and stuff like that, such as the Facebook app, always keep a check on those because those can actually drag down the performance of your mobile device as well. So in conclusion of this video, I have here in the top right corner, this is connected to my iPhone 7 in real time, and I am going to just do a quick demo here of how Loft Manager Online performs on an iPhone 7. And this, by the way, is still hosted on a very inexpensive $5 per month hosting account. This is still under development. We haven't even gone live with this yet. But I just wanted to show you the kind of response time that I'm getting just for comparison purposes. You may be using a cheaper phone, or maybe even might even have a slower internet connection. So I just want to go through here real quick and just show you how snappy it is, even on a cheap, inexpensive hosting plan. As you can see, I can scroll left and right. I can find cock. Okay, I can select any one of these, right? Find hen, progeny. So it's pretty snappy, pretty snappy. Pedigree, print. Let's go back to my birds. I can actually select all of these, click on print. All right, here it just now generated a print report. This is 2,079 pages long. I wouldn't want to print this, but just for example, that was pretty fast. Date title. Updated the title. Options. I can do an export. Let's do export. And that's my export containing all of John Boyle's birds, which is essentially 4,682 birds. It's quite a bit. It wasn't too long to download those. So let's go ahead and do a global search real quick here, just to see how fast that process is. Alright, global search is complete, showing 1 to 100 of 622,267 entries. That was pretty fast. Scroll down to the bottom. Let's go to page 2. Page 2 is loaded, showing 101 to 200 of 622,267 entries. Once again, that was pretty fast. And as a reminder, it doesn't download all those records. It's actually only downloading 100 at a time, hence the reason it's faster. And so clearing out these search results, let's try adding a bird real quick here. And scroll down, let's type this is a test and add an emoji. Save. Alright, it's done. Perform search. And there's the bird. Go ahead and delete that. Alright, pretty snappy. So there you have it. If you're using a halfway decent cell phone and you've got a solid internet connection to the internet and you've got a fairly fast data plan through your cell phone carrier and you don't have a lot of background processes that are consuming up resources, the Loft Manager Online application should perform optimally. If not, please revisit this video, go through the checklist, and start exploring some of those listed factors that can impact the performance of the application. Hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you found it useful. I encourage you to check out some of the other videos that I've created that actually dive into more instructional how-to stuff on how to use the application. Thanks again for your time and enjoy.